So now that we've gotten a little bit of a tour of these items up here, we're going to talk a little bit about these items here on the left. First, let's go to items. Under items, you'll see that you can add an item here. You'll also see a list of all of the most recently added items. You can see that I added one recently on February 17th. You can see details about that specific item that will bring up a description. It'll let you know which collection it's in. You can also go in and edit those items, which will take you to the Dublin course screen that you will soon become familiar with. So from this page, I'm going to go to Add an Item to show you what this process looks like. So the first thing that you'll notice on Add an Item is that there is Dublin Core metadata available to you. It's important to be as descriptive as possible when you're describing the specific file that you're uploading. And you want to use as many of these fields as you can, as you have information for. If you need information that's more specific than what's listed above the box here, which gives you just some very basic information about how to input for that specific field. If you need more information or better information than that, I highly recommend checking out the LibGuide for Omeka, which is listed among the library's other LibGuides. So once you've filled in all of the Dublin Core metadata, you can go over to Files here, and this is where you actually upload the file that you've just described. So you'll choose File here, and then you'll have all of the different files on your computer to choose from. You'll also notice that there are tags here. Tags are a little bit different than Dublin Core metadata. So of course with Dublin Core metadata you're describing the item, you are establishing a way for your users to search your website. Anything that shows up in that Dublin Core metadata will be terms that will show up when users search your site. So you're enabling that kind of searching with Dublin Core metadata. Tags are also searchable in Omeka. The difference is that Dublin Core metadata will export out of Omeka with your items. So if you ever need to move all of your content from Omeka into something like Content-EM or WordPress or some other platform, you'll be able to do that seamlessly by just exporting your Dublin Core along with your items. What doesn't export out are tags. So I wouldn't spend all of your effort describing your content with tags. I would spend more effort on Dublin Core if you can, but if you're interested also in just using tags, that's fine too. Tags are easy. They're totally natural language. You don't need to use any controlled vocabularies or anything like that with them. It's essentially the way that you think it's appropriate to describe your items. So for this photograph of family, I might type in family genealogy. And then I would just add tags. You do want to be very consistent with your tags. For example, you don't want two items that are both about family to be named families and families separately. You want all of the items that are about family to come up when you search family. You need to standardize your language a little bit. So especially if you're working on this with a bunch of other students in a class, for example, you might consider coming up with kind of a shared vocabulary for how you want to describe things, and then selecting from that vocabulary before you start to tag items. When you are done describing your item, you should make sure that you click this Add Item button. You also might want to select which collection you'd like the item to be a part of. Here you can select whether this is something you want to show up on the public website, and you can also select whether it's something you would like to show up on the home page for the public website, so something that you would like to be featured. And then just make sure to add your item. And when you do so, it will appear in this list. Again, if you need to make any changes to your metadata, to your tags, etc., you can always go in and edit the item, and it will bring up that specific item, and you'll be able to make any changes. If you do make changes, just be sure to save your changes here. And you can always view the public page and navigate back and forth like this. Up here on the right-hand corner in the top, you'll notice that there is an Omeka admin button that will take me right back to where I was, to my dashboard. Moving on, here we have collections. Collections actually have their own metadata. So you'll want to just describe very generally what a collection is about. You might not want to go into the same level of detail as you do with the items, but you'll see and recognize these fields. They're the same as they are for items. And generally you're describing the kinds of things this collection contains. So you might take samples from the items that are in the collection if you've already created those items. And then again, you'll need to select whether it's public and whether it's featured. Item types. So there are several different item types that you can choose from here. Each item type will have metadata that's specific to that item type. So it will have elements such as interviewer instead of creator, for example, interviewee. So if you have a very specific kind of content and you're interested in describing that kind of content, and you don't think that those kind of traditional Dublin Core fields apply to your item, you have the ability to customize that a little bit under item types. You can even add your own item type, though there are quite a few listed here. I would recommend, if possible, sticking to the classic Dublin Core element set. However, this does just provide you with a little bit of flexibility there in case you have very specific kinds of content. Under tags here, you can see all of your tags. You can hit this little X and it will erase the tag. That can be very helpful if you are looking through and you find something that is kind of a repeat or just a slightly different way of saying the same thing. It's very helpful to see this kind of cloud of them next to each other. Often you'll notice that there are things like refuge and refugee, for example, that I might just standardize and change that to refugee. You can do that right here as well. Just by clicking on it, you can change that. So I could do this, and it would essentially say to refugee right there. So here under exhibits, you'll notice that there is the ability to add an exhibit. There's also the same as with items. You can edit an exhibit. You can go directly into an exhibit and edit the content. A few things that I do want to point out. Exhibits are not required in Omeka. They're just an added benefit. And I have mentioned before that you can export items, collections, and metadata. You cannot export exhibits. So if you're interested in having something that lasts 10 years, you probably don't want to put a lot of effort into building an exhibit because it's finite in a way that items and collections are not. So exhibits are really fantastic. They give you a way to contextualize all of your images. You can tell a story with an exhibit. So here you would enter the title of your exhibit, call it whatever you like. In this case, I'm telling the story of a woman's biography. This particular site showcases her diary. So the biography gives you your user a little bit more of a full picture of the history of her life. Here is the slug. A slug is essentially just that last part in a URL. So you want it to be short and descriptive. No spaces, no special characters like underscores or anything like that. You'll just want to keep it simple. Credits, this is where you can credit anyone who contributed to the exhibit. So if 2 students out of a class create their own exhibit, for example, you'd want to put the students' names there separated by commas. In description, you have the opportunity to give your exhibit a description. Something short is usually what I recommend, short and descriptive. You can tag exhibits in the same way that you can tag items. So then when someone is browsing or searching by tags in your live site, they'll be able to see the exhibit alongside the items. You can choose a particular theme. You can choose the same theme that is on your broader website, or you can choose a theme that's specific to the exhibit. I usually recommend sticking with the current public theme. That's something that will just kind of add a more standard look and feel to your website. Exhibits in Omeka have multiple pages, so you have the opportunity to use a summary page, which will essentially give a short summary of everything that's included in that exhibit, a short description of the exhibit, of how it's relevant to the rest of the website. If you'd like to use the summary page, you can go ahead and check that box. If not, it will just automatically start on the first exhibit page within the different pages of the exhibits. You can choose a cover image for the exhibit. This will just show as kind of a large image on the summary page. It will also be the thumbnail for the exhibit in the larger website. Here is where you add your first page to the exhibit. So this is kind of the bread and butter of the exhibit. Here's where you give your page a title. This should be something that's specific to this page of the exhibit, so more narrowly focused than the overall exhibit title. And then again, a page slug that's relevant just to this page. So something short, descriptive, no special characters, no spaces. And then there are several different layouts that you can choose from. So if you'd like your exhibit to be a gallery, if you have a lot of images that you'd like to showcase, for example, and not as much text, this page of the exhibit might be a gallery. If you have a lot of text and not really any images related to this specific page's subject matter, you might choose to just type out the text. And then again, file with text is kind of your classic exhibit page. And then file will just give you almost like a showcase of the different files or the different images in your exhibit. When you're done, make sure to save your changes or save your changes and just move on to the next page. So you can make page after page after page this way and just make sure to save as you go. Simple Pages gives you the opportunity to add content to your site that is outside the hierarchy of items, collections, and exhibits. So if you want to add something like an About page and all you really want is text and you don't want to have to bring in any items or collections or anything like that, you can just go ahead and create a simple page. So to do that, you type the title. So let's say About Page. About Page is probably the most common use of simple pages. You assign a slug here, so that could, again, this is the end of the URL, so you want something short and descriptive. If you don't assign anything on this particular page type, it just uses the title for you. So this would be About, for example. I recommend checking this unless you know HTML and you want to just use the HTML yourself. This gives you this handy dandy little menu up here that you can select from to kind of customize the way your text looks or your content looks on the page. If you'd like to assign a parent page, you can do that, so you can nest pages. So for example, if I wanted my About page to fall under a different page that said something like learn more about why I created this site, I could assign a parent page here. If you assign no parent, it just essentially assumes that the main page, the home page for your website, is going to be the parent page for the About page in this case. And then the order of pages relevant to the other pages within the same parent. So if you have several different pages under that learn more about why I created this site tab, that would be a terrible name for a tab, but if you decided to have several pages under there, you could do that. And you could say, I would like the About page to fall second in that order of pages. And then just check whether or not you'd like to make the page public. Just as with all of the other pages in Omeka, you don't have to make it public. You can save your changes on the back end and not make it public. And then you just want to save your changes. So that concludes our tour of the Omeka dashboard. If you'd like to learn more, please do investigate the LibGuide a bit more. There are a lot of really fantastic resources on there, links to external resources, people that have used Omeka with their teaching, people that have used Omeka for student projects. So do check that out, and thank you very much for watching this film.